Yes, this is Valerie Hawthorne. I called in last night about Tina Herrmann being missing. I am out at her house now. I just went in her home because I'm so worried about her. There is blood everywhere.
This 911 call was made by Valerie Hawthorne. Concerned that her coworker Tina Herrmann hasn't shown up to work, she goes to Tina's house to check on her. What she finds inside is one of the most shocking crime scenes in American history. 4 people are missing, and the house is covered in blood and gore. The community is in shock as the Herrmann household, once full of life, turns into the center of a horrifying mystery. And only one man knows the truth.
People will forgive if you're honest and try to help as much as you can. That goes a long way with most people.
This is too big for forgiveness.
I have never experienced a case this big, this serious, and this tragic.
On Wednesday, November 10th, 2010, the peace of Apple Valley, a quiet community in Mount Vernon, Ohio, was shattered by a grim discovery that would mark the beginning of a horrifying case. It all began when Valerie Hawthorne, the manager of the local Dairy Queen, became concerned that her employee, 32-year-old Tina Herrmann, hadn't shown up for work. This was out of character for the young mother of 2 children, Sarah, 13, and Cody, 11. Tina was always reliable and a hard-working employee. But now, she also wasn't answering any texts or calls, which was very unusual for her. Valerie knew that Tina had a rocky relationship with her boyfriend, so she called 911 to inform them that Tina was missing.
Sheriff Barber's office.
Hi, my name is Valerie Hawthorne. One of my employees did not show up for work this afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Which is totally uncharacteristic of her. She's one of my managers.
Okay.
I drove out by her house and went and knocked on the door, left her a note. She's not answering her phone, which is totally uncharacteristic. She's not answering her texts, and she is not at home, but her truck and her coat are in her house. Her truck's there and her coat is in the house. I'm very concerned about her.
What's her name?
Her name is Tina Herrmann, Herrmann.
Okay.
I know that she and her boyfriend are splitting up, and he can be a real jerk with her.
Okay.
The next day, Valerie goes back to Tina's house to check on her. This time, when no one answers her knocks, she goes around to the back of the house and enters through a window. Inside, she makes a gruesome discovery. Tina calls 911 again. Investigators find blood everywhere, spattered on the walls and seeped into the carpet. They find 3 distinct locations in the house where blood has pooled. Then they see multiple drag marks leading into the bathroom, where they converge near the tub. The tub is covered in blood. A mark on the shower curtain indicates that at one point, the tub was at least 2 inches deep in blood. This suggested that the victims had been dragged to the bathroom and dismembered in the tub. Tina, her 2 children, Sarah and Cody, her friend Stephanie Sprang, and the dog Tanner are all missing. Had they all been murdered? Then detectives find an important clue. There are 2 sets of shoe prints on the floor. One of the prints comes from a 7.5 size Airwalk shoe. They find a shoebox in Sarah Maynard's room that corresponds to a size 7.5 Airwalk. Investigators conclude that the prints belong to Sarah, who has most likely walked out of the house with the killer and is still alive. As they comb through the Herrmann home, detectives find grocery receipts that have a timestamp of 12 p.m. on Wednesday, the day of the incident. Tina's shift had been scheduled to begin at 4 p.m. This meant that the crime had occurred on Wednesday afternoon between 12 noon and 4 p.m. Investigators zero in on their prime suspect, Tina's boyfriend, Greg Borders. Tina was planning to move out from his house the afternoon that the family disappeared. The 2 had a rocky relationship, as Valerie had said on her 911 call.
I know that she and her boyfriend are splitting up, and he can be a real jerk with her.
Officials bring Greg in for questioning, but while Greg admits that he and Tina have a challenging relationship, He insists that there never were any physical altercations between them. Besides, he has a rock-solid alibi. Greg had been working on Wednesday afternoon and then spent the night at a friend's place before going golfing the next morning. Police clear him as a suspect and begin to search for other leads. But then they find something that will lead them to the killer. In Tina's garage, investigators find a shopping bag with 2 tarps and heavy-duty garbage bags, along with a Walmart receipt. They check with the local Walmart and discover that the items were purchased by a man just after midnight on Wednesday. The surveillance footage shows a man who walked unhurriedly through the store, picking out the items he needs from the aisles. He knew where to go and didn't ask for assistance from the store assistants. They conclude that he was familiar with this particular Walmart. Could this mean that he lived in the area? When questioned, the security person at the Walmart said that he remembered the individual driving off in a Toyota Yaris. Investigators begin a search for all of the Toyota Yarises registered in Knox County and find one that belongs to an individual who looks very similar to the man in the CCTV footage. His name is Matthew Hoffman, an unemployed tree trimmer who lived less than half a mile from the crime scene. By Sunday, November 14th, 4 days after the murder, detectives obtain a search warrant and go to the suspect's house. When they enter the house, they find Hoffman sleeping in the living room, unaware of what's going on. They take him into custody and survey the scene. It's one of the most bizarre sights that they've ever seen.
Leaves filling the living room, bags of leaves floor to ceiling in the bathroom, a peace sign scribbled on a door and a knife, dead squirrels in the freezer.
The house is full of piles of leaves, deep enough to hide a body. At first, investigators think the leaves could be hiding dead bodies, but there's nothing there. Then they discover a dresser pushed up against the basement door. When they go to the stairs, they find Sarah Maynard lying on a bed of leaves. Her feet and hands are tied with yellow rope and duct tape. There are bags of leaves everywhere, lining the walls of the basement. Miraculously, she's alive and appears unharmed, although disorientated.
She was being held against her will. She is in good condition. She was taken to a hospital for evaluation. In the house with her at the time that she was located was an individual from Mount Vernon. He is now in the Knox County Jail, currently charged with kidnapping. Unfortunately, as of right now, we have not located Tina, Stephanie, or Sarah's little brother, Cody.
It's really scary knowing that I could spit on this porch from my house.
Sarah was handed over to her father's custody as the search for the rest of the victims continued.
My brother and I got home from school that day and noticed that things were weird. When I started to take my shoes off, I looked down and saw blood. When I started to go down the hallway, there was a guy who came out real fast. I got to the phone and dialed 911, but I didn't hit talk because I thought that if I called 911 that he'd kill me. He got out his knife and cut me on my finger. There was already blood on the knife that he had in his hand. I saw blood everywhere. There was blood on the walls, all over the floor. That is the moment when I began to think he killed my mom. He tied my hands and legs with a rope and then put me in the kitchen. At that time, I knew he was killing my brother in the bathroom because I heard the toilet flush and then I heard running water. He had put me in the back seat of my mom's friend's Jeep. There was a plastic bag that he had laid me over top of. Later, I found out that he had laid me on their dead bodies in the car. He then drove me to another house. He unblindfolded me and then he put me in the basement. I saw leaves everywhere. The leaves were all over the walls. He had told me he wanted to put leaves to make my bed comfortable. He gave me a bowl of cereal with rotten milk, and then he said if I was hungry, I had to eat a dead squirrel. I didn't eat anything for 4 days. Didn't sleep. I stayed awake worrying about where my family was.
Sarah also tells investigators Hoffman abused her over the 4 days that he held her captive. Now, detectives have Sarah's side of the story. and they know what happened on the day of the murders. But there's still one major mystery. Where are the 3 bodies? A tip received by the police informed them to check trees for evidence. Matt talked about living in trees. He was always carrying ropes and a chainsaw in his truck. When detectives bring Hoffman in for interrogation, he takes his right to remain silent to a whole new level, refusing to speak at all. Interrogators question him for hours, but get nothing.
He's sitting there in this situation, obviously in his mind he's thinking, what am I going to do?
Then investigators try something different. They bring in a female interrogator, hoping Hoffman will let his guard down.
Hi, my name is Chris. I wanted to talk to you for a second if I could.
At first, Hoffman acts as though he doesn't know what happened on the night of the murders.
He wanted me to be an ally to him. And I think he believed maybe as a female he can manipulate me into thinking, yeah, this poor guy here, he really doesn't know what he did to these people and he wouldn't really do it.
The agent plays into it, establishing rapport with Hoffman.
People will forgive if you're honest and try to help as much as you can. That goes a long way with most people.
This is too big for forgiveness.
Then Hoffman finally tells them that he had a dream about being at a food processing plant, opening a trash bag and seeing cut up body parts. Later, he admitted that this was a lie and that he had made it all up. He knew the gig was up and that they had him. Hoffman was probably playing out different scenarios in his mind, trying to think of which outcome would be the best for him. Initially, he wanted detectives to kill him, but later, he must have decided that he wanted to live and tries to enter into a plea deal. Hoffman writes a 10-page letter confessing to the crimes. In the letter, he says that he had slept in the woods across the street, staking out Tina's home. The next morning, once everyone had left, he snuck into the home through the garage. In his letter, he says that he attacked Tina in a panic, and he wasn't expecting her to walk in while he was burglarizing the house. Then Stephanie drove up, and he killed her too. I was in a total state of shock during this time. I killed Tina's dog because it wouldn't stop barking. I did not enter the house to kill those people. I did not know a single one of them. I did not know their names, and I did not know who all lived at the house. I chose the house to break into because there was not any close neighbors, and I noticed the garage door was ajar. I chose the house the day before. I did not plan for any of this to happen. He painted it as a burglary gone wrong, and that he never meant to kill anyone. But if so, why did he stake it out the way he did over several days? And why had he purchased duct tape, a knife, and heavy-duty gloves? Hoffman also claimed to have treated Sarah nicely during the abduction, letting her play video games, watch movies, and eat hamburgers. But Sarah contests this.
I think he was just trying to say that in his letter to make people think that he felt good about himself, for him to think that he fed me and stuff, and he didn't. He didn't let me shower or do any of that stuff.
Hoffman finally gave in and led detectives to where the bodies had been disposed, but only after law enforcement brokered a deal that involved taking the death penalty off the table. When he finally showed them where he had hidden the dismembered bodies, no one could believe it. Inside a massive hollowed-out 60-foot-tall beech tree in a densely wooded area, about 6 miles from Tina Herrmann's home, police found the trash bags with the remains of the victims. It's unlikely that detectives would ever have found the bodies if Hoffman hadn't led them to it. To recover the bodies, police had to use a chainsaw to cut an opening in the tree trunk. Matthew had requested that the tree not be cut down, and according to investigators, would continue to ask them for pictures to reassure him that they had not destroyed the tree. For him, this tree held the sanctity of a burial ground. There is some speculation that he may have hollowed out the tree himself during his time working as a tree trimmer. Authorities suggest that Hoffman's strange preoccupation with trees was more than just an interest. It bordered on delusional. In fact, there's a specific term for this condition, dendrophilia. defined as an excessive love or fascination with trees, sometimes to a sexual extent. Hoffman's distinctive obsession gave him the name the Leaf Killer.
Mr. Hoffman, do you understand everything that's been said here today?
Yes.
It's been indicated to me it's your desire at this time to enter a guilty plea to counts 1 and counts 2 of the indictment, charges of aggravated murder and unclassified felony. Is that a correct statement?
Hoffman pleaded guilty to 10 felony counts and was sentenced to life in jail without the possibility of parole. His mother spoke about how Hoffman was doing in prison.
I asked about how her son is adjusting to prison life. She said he's had some difficulty, experiences mild forms of panic attacks, and to this day has never spoken a word about the murders. Hoffman remains in protective custody, requires close supervision, and is considered a level 3 inmate.
For a man who was obsessed with nature, and particularly trees and leaves, having to spend his days in a tightly controlled and confined space would be a torturous punishment. And as for Sarah, her life will never be the same. But while Hoffman took that away from her, he could never take away her strength. Abducted, starving, bound, gagged, and violated for 4 days in complete darkness on a bed of leaves, not knowing the fate of her family, 13-year-old Sarah is the very epitome of bravery. Her powerful victim impact statement was read in court during Hoffman's sentencing. She wrote, "I'm not scared of you, Matthew. I'm going to stand up for myself and live my life."
I wanted to tell him that I wasn't scared of him. I just wanted to live my life.
Today, Sarah wants her mother and brother to be remembered for the things that made them so special in life.
Well, Mom, she took really good care of us and made sure we had food and heat and clothes, and Cody, he was just a really good brother, even though we fought a lot.
Her survival of Hoffman's evil and her rescue is astonishing, a tribute to her resilience and bravery. Sarah is determined to reclaim her life and to move forward, one day at a time.
This is Jennifer Weathers. She was the last person to see her daughter Megan Cordy before Megan jumped out of the car Jennifer was driving and disappeared into the night.
I'm calling her name and looking out the window and trying to hear her.
And you couldn't see her?
Mm-mm.
Did you hear anything when she jumped?
Mm-mm.
Jennifer waits a whole day before she reports this strange incident, and she doesn't seem all that concerned about finding her daughter.